Well folks, it has to be talked about. The Bugatti Tourbillon, named of course after a little device within watches designed to help keep them as accurate as possible. Worth looking into that little device for an interesting read just on its own merit. It's an appropriate name to be giving to something like a Bugatti. The kind of intrinsic connection between supercars and high-priced watches has pretty much always been there, so having that continued here, especially with the speedo, the heads-up display, that very Citroen-esque almost steering wheel which rotates around the dials. Personally, I love that design. I think that a lot of cars that should have had that kind of idea just never really did, especially back in, I'd say probably the 70s if I recall correctly, maybe some of the 80s as well. You'd see this idea of steering wheels going around the edge of stuff. One of my favourites, if not my favourite, was I think the Maserati Boomerang, I want to say. I think that had a very nautical almost looking version of this with the steering wheel around the dials, very Captain Nemo's car kind of design, which I also love from the League of Gentlemen. To get back to this car though, it's a double-edged sword for me because, as I put in the thumbnail, it's a ugly beauty, or a beautiful ugly car in my opinion, because this is really one of those occasions where I love the details. There are so many details, so many ideas, so many approaches, especially today in 2024 of all places, wherein this car is just so me. Not least of which the V16 engine, a naturally aspirated V16 no less. That is so me. I mean, so few cars have ever even attempted to have a production V16 engine. I never thought we would see one again. So that alone makes me want to love this car so much. Because until now, the Cizeta was it. The Cizeta V16T was the only V16 engine supercar you could buy. Period. All the others were either super old, like luxury Cadillacs, or concept cars. And the only other 16-cylinder cars were from Bugatti, which were W16, so I never even counted that because it's not the same engine configuration. The fact that this is not only going almost like back a step away from the more compact, almost cubic shape of a W16 and into the longer, narrower V16, that's almost a backward step, you would think. But I love that. I love that they're almost sacrificing, at least it would seem, sacrificing some advantage to have a more old school feel. And then on top of that, definitely ditching the quad turbos and having a naturally aspirated 9,000 RPM V16 instead, putting out 1,000 horsepower. I mean, hell of an engine. First of all, some of you may be thinking, well, hang on a minute, I thought it was an 1,800 horsepower car, not 1,000 horsepower. That sounds like a major step down if it's only got 1,000 horsepower. Well, it would be, but of course this is unsurprisingly electric assisted. It has a triple motor setup, giving you another 800 horsepower on top of the 1,000, so tremendously quick. Some of the performance on this one, if you haven't seen it already, 0 to 60 miles an hour, or about 100 kilometers an hour, is 2 seconds. No real surprise there. It's nice for a non-full electric car to have that kind of time for a change these days. 0 to 250, or technically 248 miles an hour, is probably the one which I'm most impressed by, because when you compare it to the original Veyron, it really does show just how far performance has come. If I recall correctly, I think the original Bugatti Veyron, back around, what was it, 2005, 2006, I want to say it was recorded going from 0 to 200 miles an hour in, I think, 24 seconds. This goes from 0 to 248 miles an hour, so 0 to 400 kilometers an hour, in under 25 seconds. So in other words, that's about 50 miles an hour faster than a Veyron, over a second earlier. That is astronomical performance in terms of how that compares. The problem with the car, I think, is the problem that many of us have been having, at least us plebs who will never have the chance to afford one anyway, so who really cares, is that this thing looks like Peppa Pig. It's the ugliest looking Bugatti I've seen in a long time. And that's saying something because they're not generally considered to be the prettiest of cars anyway. Even the Veyron or the Chiron, they're not usually winning design competitions. It's not really what the car is known for. It's more of the function over form mentality anyway, where it's designed in the wind tunnel, it's all about the tech and the engineering. The way I would describe it, especially since owning a Bentley, since driving multiple Bentleys, is that a Bugatti really is just a really fast Bentley. That's kind of the point. It has the same core engine tech in terms of them developing them, of course with Volkswagen's oversight, just the Bugatti took it way further. than a Bentley ever does. It's the same core concept of a car which is not just designed to be fast, it's designed to be drivable, comfortable and luxurious as well. And if you think about it, especially back when the Veyron came out, no one else was really doing that. Even the McLaren F1. Sure, it could rival it on performance, but it wasn't a luxury car. The McLaren was the total opposite. The McLaren was a race car for the road. The Bugatti was more like a 250 mile an hour limo compacted into the size of a supercar. And I do love that approach because that suits me down to a T. I like big, lazy, effortless, just never stressed engines in comfortable, smooth cruisers that are also tremendously quick. Again, ties into the Bentley thing, ties into the Bugatti thing. This one has a distinctly more race focus, which definitely differentiates it from the Chiron and the Veyron because the seating position, for example, is lower as well. The car itself is 4 centimeters lower than the Chiron. The angle of your legs is closer to being flat against the bottom of the car, and even its overall package is clearly designed for function first. And if it happens to be attractive to some people, then that's just a bonus. But I do like the fact that the big grille, that very Lexus or especially BMW-ish trend of having just a bigger and bigger and bigger grille, it's not just for the sake of opulence. You can't deny, of course, there's some of that in there, but in the case of the Tourbillon, it is about extra cooling and airflow as well. They've specifically put that out on their own website. So again, at least it has function. It may not be pretty, but many people don't find the EB110 to be pretty either, and look how tremendously quick that was. Personally, I'd take an EB110 design-wise over this any day, but I do like some things about it. Like I said, I love the heads-up display, the steering wheel, I like the idea of it rotating independently, it's very retro. I do quite like the back end. It's a little bit close to the Lamborghini Chiron for my liking, but this one I do fairly like the back end. I like the fact that it has the exposed tyres that you can see from the rear. I'm not entirely sure how that's going to go in terms of spraying stones onto the cars behind you, but sure, it looks cool. It almost looks like they took some Vision GT and Bolide, however you pronounce that one, I don't recall, and kind of combined it all together into this new idea, which again I kind of like. It does feel like a distinctly more race-focused Bugatti rather than a luxury-focused one. And one thing I also like as well is if you look at the timeline of the Veyron to the Chiron and now to this, I like how you can see that evolution happening in real time, because the Bugatti was almost 50-50 luxury and performance. It was big, it was heavy, it was comfortable, solidly made, and tremendously quick as well, but not necessarily too bothered about track day performance. It was quick, but it was kind of an afterthought in that sense. Then the Chiron, it's better on handling, it's quicker, it has better dynamics through corners, etc., but still quick, and maybe slightly less of a luxury car in the pure sense, and a bit more of a almost Spiker or Aston Martin-esque approach, wherein they're very artisan, but still performance first. So to me, the Bugatti's like a 50-50, or the Veyron, I should say, is like a 50-50, then the Chiron was almost like maybe 60-40 towards performance versus luxury, and now this one to me, the Tourbillon, it looks more like I would say maybe even an 80-20, to be honest, because if you look at that interior, there's really not much luxury going on. It's very focused on what it's doing. There's tech, there's nice design. I love the 3D printed suspension parts, etc. Very cool stuff, all cutting edge, which is what you'd hope for from a Bugatti. But I like the fact that it's kind of moving away from that, because it's not just recreating the same thing over and over again. There are so many things about it which I love, as you can tell, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. So many details, so many ideas, from an engineering point of view especially, I adore about this car. Most of all, having a V16. The visuals just don't come together for me, and that really is a shame. I'm hoping maybe there'll be some different version of it, maybe seeing it in person might be different. It really is that grille that's throwing me off. From the side, it's pretty much what you'd expect. From the back, it's pretty fresh, pretty clean. From the front, I don't know, I'm just not seeing it. If they could make a smaller grille version, I'd probably like it a lot more, but then you could just say, well, they're doing the same design over and over again. So I don't know, it's a bit of a swings and roundabouts situation for Bugatti, I guess, but they're happy with it, I'm sure their customers will be, and ultimately, who cares what we the plebs think, because we're not going to be able to afford it anyway. That's it for my thoughts though on the Tourbillon. I'd love to hear yours. A bit of old news now, it's like a week or so old, if not more, in the automotive world, but I wanted to talk about it anyway, because it's a pretty significant car. In terms of top speed, I believe it is speed limited on this version at least to 445 kilometers an hour, which is 276 miles an hour, and doubtless down the line, as they always do, they'll probably do some kind of speed record version. You already know it's capable of over 300, I mean, there's no question. But that's it for my thoughts. I'll see you in the future with more automotive news, and for now, thanks for watching.